sorry to report that they're unable to fix the Zoom. The people who are watching on Zoom, I'm very sorry. And if you will get with us on Tuesday, or if you want to get with Morgan on Monday, she'll give you an update and answer any questions, and we'll be glad to go over it with you. But we cannot fix the Zoom. Yes, please. Yes, please. Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to watch it on the legislative website. You cannot do that. But hopefully it'll soon be fixed. But we're just going to have to move on. Thank you. And next we have Commissioner Blythe.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We're very grateful to be here with you today. Number one, we start with thanks. Y'all are very generous to us, and we're very grateful to be good stewards. Some of the work you did implemented actually impacts what we talked about or proposed for 22. So, we kind of paid forward a little bit in a couple of these programs, and I think that will be very beneficial. I had to start with one little anecdote, Madam Chair, because I had one of my mentors that you know, I won't tell his name, he a long time ago told me about a story about a salesman that kept calling him about somebody, kept calling him somebody, kept calling him somebody wanting their milk business. So a gentleman ran family business and he said, I'll tell you what, son, you kept asking, I'm going to give you the milk business. That's good. So they signed the deal. The boy walked out when he got the threshold of the door. He turned around and looked at her and he said, by the way, where you buy your ice cream? 30 seconds later, he found himself on the street and he lost the milk business. He didn't get ice cream because he asked too much. Now, I also know Scripture says you have not because you ask not. So there's a little balance there. But we did have some asks in the 22. We don't have anything to track in the document, but we do thank y'all for what you helped us with in this in amended. First of all and foremost, with us, as you know, is still the ongoing opportunities. Hopefully, we can do to help our people. I'm gonna stand up for our folks. We had a $780,000 request just for salary adjustments for our starting salaries and our mid-level managers and technicians. That's needed to keep a fighting force on the field, and they do a great job. I had a call this morning with our seed lab. Those are the folks, as we've said, well, all of our folks, we talked about in the joint committee. We got up the next morning after the executive order and went to work with a mask on, and they've continued to do that. Seed Lab's doing great this morning. They do need our help and some of those other elements of our, so if your consideration would be greatly appreciated there, but that's documented in our presentations to you. The second is one of the pay forwards that you did was in our hemp program. We've started that program. We've got to regulate it properly. And so the little difference in what you proposed and what the Senate proposed, but it actually gets, I think that where we settled in supplemental was just right. That helps us get really fourth quarter, move forward with some of the positions, fourth quarter 21. And then it also allows us to take care of some of those one-time purchases, which was a couple of vehicles and things like that. So that's wonderful. That reduces what we originally requested for 22. So we have a $307,000 request for you that funds this program next year for 22 the way it should be. Now, that doesn't match up with how much money we're collecting. We're somewhere in the $450,000 range. We feel like on a fiscal year basis. This gets us, within about $200,000 of what the total costs are. But facts are, this is a new industry. We're investing in it. We're going to do it properly. I think we've laid out a good plan for you to do that. Third, Madam Chair, we talk about GATE every year. We know that we take in about $1 million more than we get every year, and we've asked several times. One of the things that happened back during the 14% cut, which turned into 6.8 for us back in June, was that we didn't have our compliance officers anymore. And we've put forward a plan to you. If you could appropriate part of the gate funds, $330,000. We think we've got a public education campaign through the market bulletin, doing some things there that would actually not have people on the road, but probably be just as effective of working with retailers and working with gate card holders. And then lastly, and I know, Madam Chair, y'all have had a question or two about this in the last day or two. Last year, you passed House Bill 1057, which brought into the 21st century some regulation of soil amendments. And soil amendments are those things that are not a fertilizer, but they still have soil building capabilities. Usually things that we've tightened down on that. You've tightened the law down, which was appropriate. We've worked very closely with EPD. This year we will raise $255,000 of new fees that are on soil amendment inspections. And what we've asked for is a plan for $240,000 of that, not to retain it, but you'll have to appropriate it. That would allow us to have an agronomist, one more field inspector, and a clerical person to help process the things. A lot of things, we deal with county governments, city governments that have wastewater treatment plants. We deal with lots of people, our food processing plants that have this liquid that has some nutrient value. It's safe. We've have really come down with the Representative Rhodes legislation last year, an improved way of keeping up with that, better labels, better data, but we do need the professionals to handle that. And so we feel confident that we've put together a program, a real good program for you moving forward, and that's just a 22 request. There was no, I don't think there's any fourth quarter submission on that. But we feel good about those, and again, you've been very generous to you and generous with your time today, and I'd love to answer any questions.
Well, one quick question. Does that responsibility fall under consumer protection, or what division would that be in?
Yes, ma'am.
Consumer protection.
The soil amendment.
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am, that's consumer protection.
It's consumer protection.
Not marketing, not administration, but consumer protection.
Consumer protection, okay. Have you gotten any federal relief from the the pandemic, any CARES money?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
No, that's all FEMA, Jimmy. Yeah. Sorry, Madam Chair, we did just get some reimbursement from the federal government, but it's 2 years hence after Hurricane Michael. So
I was speaking of the COVID.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I know you've had a lot of pandemics going on around
yes,
the state lately, but I was speaking, I should have been more specific. I'm sorry, yes, it was COVID. Any questions? I do appreciate all the work you've been, your office has been working with us on some fees and everything. Any updates on the farmers markets?
Yes, ma'am. We are going, I'm going to be in Thomasville in a couple of weeks. Paul and I will be down and back in Cordele. We feel very good about a new tenant don't have the deal signed yet, but a very good deal in Cordele that could be a 10-year deal and actually do what maybe some of us never thought we'd see, is actually get Cordele on the top side. We did, I don't recall if I said this to you at Joint Committee, Augusta, in fiscal 22 will be $100,000 to the plus. It's always been flat, and it's not, really didn't lose any money, didn't make any money. But a brand new five-year deal with FBO Foods over there that's pretty amazing. So we're continuing to work. Got a deal coming, Jimmy, too, with GEMA and Macon to take over part of our power bill and actually some responsibility for that 18,000 square foot warehouse there, which we've been working together all along. We're finally going to get some revenue out of it. So I feel very good about it.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Thank you, and thank you for the job you're doing.
Appreciate y'all.
Department of Community Affairs. Oh, y'all are online. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, are we?
We should have him try.
Madam Chair, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. We're having trouble with people that are Zooming in, and I didn't know if y'all would be in the same category.
Well, we had a 1:30, we had a meeting that ended at 1:30. I can't hear a thing on your end.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
We're trying to call
would
them
you
right
like me to just
now. Well, you
present,
can't
or would
hear
you,
me.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if it would be possible for us to move to the end of your agenda, I will be there.
That'll be fine. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we're gonna go on, we're gonna skip over Department of Community Affairs, and Commissioner Nunn is gonna come down, and we will have that here. And hopefully he won't get a lot of traffic, because I know he has to come a ways away. But we've got, let's go on, and we'll put him at the end of the agenda.
He's coming south.
He's coming south.
They're at Executive Park.
All right, soil and water. Is he a commissioner?
Good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, Director Cataway.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I told Morgan when I got here and gave her my little presentation that with the weather, I was wishing I did Zoom, but now I feel better off because I could not make it from Athens.
No, you could, and you would have to come back, so I'm glad you came. I'm glad you came.
Well, glad to be here.
And everybody has a soil and water presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. We have no adjustments in the tracking document, but I do have an ask, and I'll piggyback off Commissioner Black. I think a lot of him, and I've learned a lot from him, and I'll start by saying I'm not asking for the ice cream. I'm asking for the essentials. I'm asking for the milk here. This is simply a needed position in our rural water areas. There's 5 departments, programs that my 2 guys in that area focus on. And I've put just a simple breakdown of what is needed per month in that area, in that program for us. And basically, the 2 staff members, as good as they are, cannot cover all the needed work. If we were to meet all the requirements and correctly and beneficially handle the money that we've been fortunate enough to have, state money and federal money, and continue those projects and seek new projects, we need some help. We need some help overseeing our rehab projects for the watershed dams, overseeing the maintenance projects, which is something we're excited we were able to start last year. Focus being on meeting EPD safe dam regulations, as well as the thought if we can spend $50,000, $100,000 on a dam, getting some trees off of it, fixing the little things, then we're, in a couple of years, we're saving the state millions of dollars without having to do a full-blown rehab on those dams. So that's where we're focused on that area. And then, of course, we had just the citizen concerns and administrative work that goes along with that program that needs some time allocated to it as well. And the last thing is we're fortunate enough to have about 4 or 5 small federal grants that we use and go towards our ag producers in the state to help them improve or maintain water quality. A little less than $2 million is what we're working with in that area right now. There's several more federal opportunities out there, but with our 2 current staff members, we don't have the time with our current responsibilities to go seek that and provide more opportunities for our ag producers. So this position would pick up where our 2 current staff members are not being able to allocate time, and also help us pursue other funding opportunities to continue the work that we do. I'm asking right now for a total of a little over $57,000. That's a 36 salary, and then the fringe included. And I used the latest fringe percentage, knowing that could change, but I wanted a starting point with that. So Madam Chair, that's what I come to the committee today with a request for.
For one, it's 57,000 each.
Yes, ma'am. I'm asking for just a little over $57,000 for an extra position in that program.
Oh, you just want one extra position?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one extra position. Now this is to work with basically with the dams.
With the dams, yes, ma'am. And one of the people that are currently doing that, they spend about a quarter of their time working on the agriculture grants that I was speaking of. And I would like to bump that up to that individual for 50%, so we can bring more programs into the state for our producers.
Okay. Do I have any questions? Representative Tankersley.
I don't have any. I don't have any questions about your request here, but I'd like for you to just give us an update on the plan reviews for soil and water. I know we had a number of weeks delays in the past budget, but I know you've worked really hard and you've made a lot of progress. So I just wondered if you would touch on that.
Well, thank you for that, and we have, and it's thanks to this committee that we were able to. This time last year, we had discussions, and I know y'all were probably hearing a lot from industry about our turnaround time, which was hitting 5 weeks, 34, 35 days, which is right up to what code allows us to do. So I worked with each of you and presented something what I'm similar to present now with what we needed to fix it, and y'all saw fit to do so. So we've got a new position. And our turnaround time is down to 2 weeks now. We're averaging somewhere 12 to 15 days. Much happier industry.
I'm sure.
I receive less phone calls. I hope the ones that were receiving the phone calls about us last year are receiving less. Employee morale is much better with a little bit lower stress level of getting these things done. There is a little bit of turnover right now. We've got a position posted. We just had some notices turned in last week, I believe, but we have the availability to replace them as needed and keep on track where we're at.
Have you seen any decline in the number of requests for permits with COVID going on, or from what I hear, there's still?
We are, I will say, from fiscal year to date, now from last year, we are a little off, probably 200 or so less, but the majority of that was earlier in the fiscal year, the July, August timeframe, and it seems like we're picking back up to closer to our average for timeframe at this point.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the job you're doing. Good job.
Well, I appreciate it. You really have turned a lot of things around, and we do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate this committee's assistance in allowing me to do so.
Do I have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe travels back to Athens. if Giefer could come in, we're gonna have to skip down to them because Forestry and the Historical Society, the Historical Society said they're in the building somewhere, but they don't answer the phone. So if they come back, we'll get them. And Forestry is blocked in traffic, and they're trying to get here. There's been an accident on 75. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Glad to be here.
I think you gave us a
Yeah, you should have a...
invested in Georgia Energy, Land, and Water Resources.
Yes, ma'am. That's us.
Uh-huh.
And I'll be brief, although you may want me to try and stall to let folks get here, but don't have that much to cover. One of the things I wanted to just provide the subcommittee information on is an overview of our organization. Many of you are familiar with what we do, but I thought it'd be a good refresher just to hear it again. And if there's some that haven't heard it for the first time, this would be a good time for us to advertise what we do. We have two operational divisions, our energy division and our water resources division. In our energy division, we have 4 areas that we concentrate on: energy efficiency, renewable energy, energy assurance, and then we manage fuel storage tanks for the state of Georgia, state-owned fuel storage tanks. Under energy efficiency, one of our major programs there is the low-income weatherization program. This past fiscal year, through our network of community action agencies, we were able to weatherize 683 homes, which improved living conditions for about 1,200 Georgians. And while that's a program that doesn't get too much advertising for every one of those homes, I think it's very beneficial to their quality of life. So that's one area in our energy efficiency program that we focus on. That program is about a $5 million a year program that's funded by the U.S. Department of Energy. That's a 100% program, so there's no match to it. In our renewable energy, that falls under what's called the State Energy Program, and we have several minor programs that we utilize those funds for. The first one we've done is what we call Solar for Schools, where we're helping subsidize through the grant process solar installations for K through 12 and higher education facilities so that they can actually maximize renewable energy and lower their utility costs. And we've had several projects there, and that's a program that's been ongoing for a couple of years, and we'll continue it into this year. Another area that we work on is a building operator certification, wherein facilities managers for K through 12 schools and higher education can take this course and become certified building operators, and it teaches them how to be more energy efficient in their facilities and to maximize their equipment and to reduce their energy footprint and expenditures.
How many schools do you have participating in that?
Well, we had 40 folks participating this past year. So there's 40 systems.
While we're on the subject, I hate to interrupt you. I'm really interested in the solar energy for the schools. Is that a loan program or a grant program, or how does that?
It's a partial grant program, so it's that we provide funds up to, I think it's $25,000 for a certain size solar installation, and then the school has to take care of the rest of it. So it's a partial grant.
Partial grant, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then a loan on top of the grant?
We don't do any loans on the
Okay.
energy side. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was really interested in that. I wasn't aware of that.
Oh,
So
that's
I'm
okay.
glad you're going through this.
Yeah, I wasn't on a roll or anything, so that's fine. I got time to kill, you know. We're waiting on Christopher Nunn, so.
Okay.
Under our energy assurance part of our energy division, we work hand in hand with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency when it comes time to activate for energy assurance. And we're the lead agency for Emergency Support Function 12, which is energy. So when GEMA activates, we deal with energy, so the power outages, or if there's gasoline or fuel shortages, we lead that group at GEMA to remedy those things. So during the ice storms, if power's out, we coordinate with Georgia Power, the EMCs. If we're having fuel shortages, we coordinate with the distributors and the convenience store associations and how to get fuel to where it needs to get to. And then our fuel storage tank program that we maintain and operate the fuel storage tanks at all the state facilities, both above ground and underground. So we maintain those, and we also make sure that those installations are current and pass all their inspections from EPD and EPA. Water Resources Division, that's what most folks are familiar with us. We run a loan program that really has 4 base programs. 2 of them are state funded, 2 of them are federally funded. One of those state-funded programs is the Georgia Reservoir Fund. That doesn't get much activity since the early days of Governor Deal's administration, where we had the water supply program. And that fund was set up in 2008 during the Water Stewardship Act, and it's very specific and very limited as to what it can be used for. So we were able to get some funding into that. We've participated in multiple reservoir projects throughout the state. Some of those are coming online now. Some have been online. We help communities out with that fund for finding new sources of water, drilling wells, things like that where they could. But that program is really specific. It doesn't have much flexibility, so it doesn't get much use. The other state-funded program is the Georgia Fund. That program provides a tremendous amount of flexibility. We're able to fund water, sewer, stormwater, land conservation, landfill work, any number of things with that program, and it's very popular with communities. And that's the program we use, working in conjunction with Commissioner Wilson on economic development projects. So when a community has a need for water and sewer work relative to an economic development project, we work with the Department of Economic Development in that community to produce a loan that is affordable, favorable, and gets accomplished what they need to have accomplished. So that we utilize that program, not primarily, but it's designed to help on the economic development front. The 2 federally funded programs, the SRF that you see in your material stands for State Revolving Fund. Those programs are funded by the Environmental Protection Agency of the federal government. The drinking water SRF is, as it says, it's to provide safe drinking water to the citizens. And the Clean Water Fund is a fancy way of saying sewer work. So that's what we use those 2 for. They have distinct uses. We're able to offer very below market rates on those programs, and in your materials you'll see the rates for a 20-year loan under both of those. Our interest rates are benchmarked against the state of Georgia's AAA rate when GSFIC sells bonds, which they do annually. We will use the rate that the state gets for the AAA rating for the 20-year bonds, and we'll use that to set our rates for loans. What we do is, if the rates go down, that when GSFIC sells bonds, we'll immediately reduce our interest rate. If they go up, we'll implement that rate a year later. So if the rate increases, we implement that a year later so that there is time for those folks who are planning projects or doing their financial analysis, that they know what their interest rate will be. And then we reduce that interest rate. In the case of the state-funded programs right now, it's 1.63% for 20 years. And then we have various rates. If you have a shorter AM period, of course, the rate reduces. If you go up to 30 years, it increases. Right now, at 30 years, it's 2.36%. And that's all calculated with the Public Resources Advisory Group, the financial advisors that GSFIC uses. So it's consistent with whatever rates GSFIC gets. We reduced the rates of the federal program by 0.5 percentage point, 50 basis points. recognizing that there are more requirements for the federal program, and so we want folks to recognize that it should be a little more cost effective at the end of the day. So that's 1.13% for 20 years for both of those programs. The two federal programs offer what we utilize as principal forgiveness, which acts as a partial grant when somebody takes out a loan. And we evaluate principal forgiveness on two criteria. The first one is the readiness of the project. Where are they in the process? When we get these when we get these dollars from EPA, we have 3 years to spend them. So we have to get the money out of the door. So part of the evaluation is where are you on your progress of getting the project ready to go under construction. The next part is our affordability criteria. And we have 10 criteria that we look at, runs the gamut from median household income to population change, to how many folks are on Social Security in a community. There's 10 different criteria that we look at, and that data comes from the American Community Survey, which is done annually. So the data is only about, at the worst case, a year old when we look at it. So we take those two things, the readiness aspect and then the affordability, and we evaluate that, but we try to maximize the available principal forgiveness for those communities that are disadvantaged and utilize that for them to be able to afford projects that are needed and that they probably could not afford to do otherwise. Communities can get as much as 50% principal forgiveness on their project. So, but that's a benefit of the federal program as well. And we do that annually. We have a call for projects that runs from usually September 1st to the end of February. Then we'll grade and score all those projects and then determine who's eligible for principal forgiveness based off of the readiness aspect and the affordability. You also have in your materials a graphic representation of where principal forgiveness has been spread out throughout the state for the last 2 years. And that's really just to show that it is throughout the state. It's just a map. Also in your materials, I have a capacity update. As of December 31st, we had available total capacity of about $316 million to loan. That's good for us. I mean, we were a little bit higher over the last few years. We've been able to get some more money out the door, which is always favorable. That's good for us. And like Commissioner Wilson talked about, we have seen a huge increase in the amount of loans we are making just this past year. We're at halfway into this fiscal year. We've already exceeded the dollar amount of loans we made in FY 2020. And so we're expecting that pace to keep up. The interest rates are so low that I think communities wisely, if they can, are taking advantage of getting some much needed work done. And we're willing and more than able to do that. From an appropriation standpoint, the only change from the amended is a reduction in the one-time funds for the Metro North Georgia Water Planning District. The district in their statute are required to update their plan every 5 years. And so last year was their update time, and you guys were kind enough to include that for them in that appropriation for FY 21. Don't need it for FY 22, so that's the reduction in the appropriated funds. The other funds are pass-throughs to RC&Ds, Georgia Rural Water, and Metro North Georgia Water Planning District, and then Gilmer County. And then we have, from a capital standpoint, $12 million in general obligation bonds to match the federal SRF programs. That $12 million will give us access to about $40 million in loan ability and capacity. And with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my update and report. If you have any questions, I would love to try and answer them.
Any questions? Representative Tankersley.
If you don't mind, I may have just not picked up on this, but Would you tell me again, if you've already said so, what's the definition of a disadvantaged community?
Disadvantaged community, the federal government says that each state determines what that is, and we use disadvantage and define it by utilizing those criteria, the 10 criteria that we talked about, and we utilize those and we score based on that. And if a community scores, right now it's scoring 30 or greater, they're definitely defined as disadvantaged. And then as we work our way down that number, they become less disadvantaged and they're healthy. But it's an evaluation of those criteria. Again, median household income, unemployment, population change, population over 65, how many folks are on SNAP. There's a whole host of criteria that we use, and then we use that score, and that's what defines disadvantage.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. When you talked about assistance for disadvantaged communities, how much of the percentage did you say could be forgiven off their loan?
For the communities that are determined to be the most disadvantaged in a year, that could be as high as 50%.
50%?
Now, we do cap that on a loan basis at $1.5 million. So it's either 50% or $1.5 million, whichever is greater.
I've got a community I'm sure is disadvantaged, Tennille, Georgia.
Yeah, we've been talking to those good folks, so we're trying to work with them. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Representative LaHood.
Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. I was just wanting to ask a question, and I'm sorry if you've already said this and I missed it, but who's your typical borrower for water and sewer projects?
It runs the gamut. We have our loans are available to all of the communities in Georgia and the authorities. So with that, it runs the gamut from, a really small Turin, with a few hundred customers or maybe 100 customers, to the city of Atlanta, Savannah, Columbus. I mean, it runs the gamut. So we really try to service everybody we can.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Tonkley, do you have a question?
I do. I have one other question. How much money is still in the Reservoir Fund loan program?
Right now, I think we have a capacity of probably about a little over $1 million. That was funded, again, early on during Governor Deal's administration when we had the water supply program. And that program, when it was set up, that loan fund, when it was established in 2008, again, is very specific. And it's set up set up like an escrow account. So any dollars that are in there can only be used for those types of water supply projects that are authorized in the Stewardship Act. So it's very limited into what it can be used for. So when those dollars get repaid back in, they're strictly for water supply. That's why it has such a low capacity. These are just repayments that are coming back in from loans we made 5, 6, 7 years ago.
May I have one other question?
Go ahead.
So when we were talking about the disadvantaged communities, and you said there's a list of 10 specific criteria that you use, can we get a copy of that?
Certainly.
Of the criteria?
Yep,
Thank
we'll
you.
get that to you.
One other question, when you were talking about redoing houses and saving money with energy, and I think you said y'all redid 600 houses in the state.
683.
All right, who do y'all coordinate with locally to do that?
The community action agencies are within the state. We have 14 of them that handle various counties in their area, and so that's who does the work. And
Community action agencies?
Yes, ma'am. So usually they're the agencies that handle Head Start, that handle the LIHEAP program, the energy assistance billing programs. Those programs for the disadvantaged portions of communities, the weatherization program is housed under those folks.
Do they get a percentage of this?
Yes, they get admin costs.
How much admin costs do they
They're
get?
up to 5%.
5%? Okay. And can we have a breakdown of how much each one of them do?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
I'll get that for you.
I think Representative Bentley was very interested in this a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And I wish she was here to ask some questions, but I'll have her get in touch with you, okay? And one other thing too, I noticed in your financial statement this year, and I'm sure I've just overlooked it, you mentioned the Georgia Environmental Loan Acquisition Corporation.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that still in operation? Do y'all still use that?
It still exists. And I'm going to tell you more than you want to know, but forgive me. When we started that was done back in 2009 and 10. And you'll recall, when we did that,
Yeah.
it was to fill a gap in the budget. And so we sold GFA loans we created the 501c3 to buy that and issue bonds. We defeased those bonds back in the summer so that we could provide a payment deferral period to all our borrowers from June to January of this year, recognizing that folks were going to be going through a hardship. And most of our borrowers took us up on that, so it's been really successful, and I think they've really appreciated it. But it still exists. We still have the corporation, but we just recently defeased the outstanding bonds. We were able to do that through again, not to bore you with details, but the whole program was over-collateralized so that we were able to, as we made our payments, we had more income coming in. We were able to pay off those bonds early. But it still exists, and
Well, do you still have expenses with that?
we don't bill anything expenses other than we have to maintain our rating with the rating agencies, and then we also have to produce annual reports. But that's really the only expenses with the corporation.
Okay. All right. Do you have a copy of the annual report? Okay. That's the annual report we get out when you have them listed right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Yeah.
Representative Mathis.
About how long does it take how long does it take on the turnaround if you apply for a loan to actually get that?
We have 4 board meetings a year. They're about every 2 to 3 months. So usually it depends on when the loan hits in the cycle, the application. But usually takes, it could be as short as 4 weeks, or it could be a couple of months for when it's totally approved, by the board. But that's usually what it is.
So the size of the loan, does that matter in the time? And what's the smallest loans you?
We made loans for $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. For communities that just, I need a well drilled, my well collapsed, I need a new one, I need, $20,000. Like, sure, yeah, we can do that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for the job you're doing and all you're doing to help these small and rural areas. We do appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Glad to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back. I think they've got in a little traffic. Let's go back to the Georgia Historical Society. Good to see y'all.
It is good to see you too, Madam Chair and committee.
For the members that don't know, this is Dr. Todd Gross that's going to present with the Georgia Historical Society.
Thank you, yes. And I have with me today Patty Maher, who is our Director of Communications, and she has some briefing books. She didn't want to just approach without your permission, but she
yes,
has some
that'll be
briefing
great.
books. Okay,
please.
She'll be bringing those to you, and I'll go ahead.
And one other thing, we've got some new members here, and you might want to refresh them about how y'all contracted with the state about the markers, because we've got a new board member that's here and one that was on Zoom, but we're having trouble doing our Zoom meeting.
I understand. Yes, I'll be glad to do that. Well, thank you for having me here today. As you heard, my name is Todd Gross. I'm the president and CEO of the Georgia Historical Society, and I appreciate this opportunity to come and talk about the historical marker program, which Georgia's had for many, many years, and all the things that we have been able to do with that over the past 20 years and during the past year as well. The Georgia Historical Society is the independent, because we're private, independent, statewide educational and research institution that is responsible for collecting and teaching Georgia history. We were founded in 1839, so we're 182 years old this year. We are headquartered in Savannah, and the reason why is because we were founded 182 years ago. There's no Atlanta in 1839. The capital was in Milledgeville. And we have an educational research mission, teaching Georgia history, and one of the most important ways that we go about doing that is through the historical marker program. And some background on that very quickly. Georgia started the historical marker program, the state did, in 1953. And the state, various agencies had control over that. There was a historical commission, and then it went to DNR until 1998. The program was virtually moribund at that time, and the program was then privatized and turned over to the Georgia Historical Society to manage and operate for the state. So beginning in 1998 and 1999, we put up the first marker that we installed, and we have since then put up approximately 250 markers. Now, you can tell the difference between the old state markers and the Georgia Historical Society markers. The old state markers are kind of the brownish green ones with the state seal, and by agreement with the state, the markers that the Georgia Historical Society has been installing are black. They ask us to make them look different. So they're black with silver letters and the seal of the Georgia Historical Society on them. As I said, the program was virtually moribund at that time, and we did a survey. We discovered, first of all, Georgia has, at that time, 2,000 historical markers. We have more than any state in the Union, with the exception of Texas. 2,000 historical markers. The vast majority of those were about Civil War battles and Confederate generals. And we realized that there was a lot more to Georgia history than just those 4 years, and surely we could come up with a way outside of those 2,000 markers to begin telling other stories. So we put a great emphasis on telling stories about women's histories, African American history, and the wide spectrum of all of Georgia history, business history, a lot of different places and topics that people don't normally think about. We did a survey, as I said. We created a database of all the markers. We also developed what was then the very first app for iPhones in the entire country, so that you can find these markers, create driving tours, discover them, learn about the markers. We did this with a grant from the Department of Economic Development in 2008 and 2009 at the beginning of the Civil War sesquicentennial, as a way of helping to teach the history of the Civil War and to make these markers accessible and also findable in a way that they had not been before. So developing that online presence as well, giving people the opportunity to create driving tours. You can go in and find the markers now, see the ones you want to see, create a driving tour using Google Maps. And this, of course, promotes economic development, because when people are in these communities, they're going out looking at markers, they're buying gas, they're buying lunch, they might spend the night in these particular areas. So in 2015, when we initially were given some responsibility with the program, it was for putting up the new markers. In 2015, the state decided that it was time to end this sort of bifurcation that was created, and we became the custodians of the state's 2,000 historical markers. So what that means is that we don't own them, you still own them, but we take care of them on your behalf. And through the funding that we receive from the General Assembly, that is how we maintain those 2,000, or work to maintain, I should say, those 2,000 historical markers. So that's a quick background then on the marker program, how we came to administer it and what we've been doing with it, and breathing life into this program that many people saw as something that its day had come and gone. And one of the things I would say too that we decided that would breathe life into this was to begin telling stories that were relevant to communities, telling stories that people wanted to learn about and wanted to know and that they could identify with. So you have the briefing book. It will give you an idea of what we were able to do during the past year. Obviously, you can see the impact of the budget cuts. We had a $50,000 cut in the FY21 budget. That represented about 20% of the funds that were available for the maintenance program itself. We were able to create 8 new markers, 4 of those are about African American history. We were able to install 5 of those. 3 of them have been postponed because of COVID, and we will eventually get those in the ground. We were also able to do maintenance on 31 markers, and that would include repainting markers, replacing the markers, replacing the post on markers. It is one of those things that you'd never feel like you can really quite get ahead of, because just as soon as you get one fixed and back on the ground, you get a report that 2 more have been knocked down. And I can tell you from personal experience, one day I was leaving Atlanta last year, driving south. I decided I'd take the back roads and went down 19. I got around Jonesboro, and there was a historical marker on the side of the road, and the marker itself looked brand new. The post was bent in half, and it was hanging like this over towards the road. I pulled over, I took a picture, I said, "What's with the Georgia militia at Jonesboro?" That was the topic of the marker. And our staff said, "We just fixed that marker." So the marker itself was brand new, had just been recast and put in place, and somebody had already hit it. So we had to come back and take it back down again and get it back in place. So it is a never-ending process, but you can see in the briefing book the dramatic difference when these markers are cared for, when they're taken care of. You can see the sort of then and now pictures of how they look, and just how breathtakingly beautiful they can become once they're cleaned and repainted and replaced. The continuing developments, you can see in the book here, we're continuing to use these markers as a way of teaching history. This was also something new that we brought to it, using our education team, our team of educators, to promote the markers as tools for teachers to use in the classroom as a way of teaching Georgia and through it American history, and using virtual field trips with Georgia schools and universities like SCAD and Kennesaw State. We're continuing to engage the community in this. We have nearly 100 community partners that help us to maintain these markers, keep an eye on them, take care of them. They sort of adopt them and help to make sure that they are in good shape in their communities. Developing community resources for how to use historical markers in the classroom. We've continued to update and enhance these online mapping and search functions. We have completely, what we did 2008-9, the technology changed, so we redid the app, and again made ways for people to find them much more easily. And one of the things that we're also near completion on is a long-term agreement with GDOT to be able to get the markers back in the ground more quickly. We discovered that when a few of the markers went down, that we had to actually go back and get permitted again to put an existing marker back in the ground, which we were having trouble understanding because the marker was already there. We were simply replacing it. But we have worked with GDOT to come up now with a blanket agreement so that any marker that was existing before, when it goes back on the ground, we don't have to go through the permitting process again. New markers, that's entirely different. We understand that process. But this is, I think, a big step for us in terms of being able to keep the process moving along and get these back into the ground. We also have something called a Marker Monday, which we do on our website. So every Monday there's a marker that's being featured. And that's, again, telling people about these markers, getting it out to the people that we communicate with through social media, through all kinds of media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it might be. The economic impact. We actually commissioned a study this past year, Dixon Strategies, to prepare for us some kind of so we get some kind of a handle on what is the economic impact. It's hard to measure that. And so we asked this company, Dixon Strategies, to do that. What they discovered was some of what we already had an indication of, but they were able to actually give us some numbers to match with it. 80% of tourists who come to this state come here to explore and to learn our history. The overwhelming majority of our tourists in Georgia are what they call heritage or history tourists. 60% of tourists that were surveyed indicated that historical markers enhance their trip, their time while they're in the state. They learn more, they gain a deeper understanding of our state in the process of seeing these historical markers. And as I mentioned, the markers are drawing people into rural communities, many of which don't have much beyond their history in order to draw tourists there. So people are going into these communities, they are reading historical markers, they are, as I said, buying gas, they're buying food while they're there, maybe spending the night, and so that's helping to promote that local economy. beyond the economic development aspect of this, and it is substantial, I think the other point of this is that, history has never really been more important than it is right now. And teaching this history, and particularly telling stories that have never been told, filling in these stories, filling in these gaps, taking an honest look at our past, not being afraid to tell the full story of Georgia history. So markers teach history, they promote healing through history, they promote unity through history. These are all things I know that the people of Georgia want to see happen. We all want to heal, to be drawn together, to learn about our history, to understand who we are as Georgians and as Americans, and I think these historical markers are able to do that. In as I mentioned, in the FY21 budget, we did sustain a 20% cut. The governor added back that's $50,000 of 20% of the maintenance part of that money. The governor added back $24,000 in the mid-year, and the House agreed to that, and that was in its budget. The Senate restored the full $50,000. I do not know what the status of that is at this point with the mid-year budget. Last I heard that they were in conference. I don't know what the status of that is right now. In the 22 budget, I know the governor has added $24,000 back as his recommendation. I certainly hope that the House and this committee will accept that and will also perhaps see its way towards helping us to be made whole and to fully restore those funds so that we can continue doing this job for you.
Yes, let's see, where did I go?
No, you need one.
You've got a mic.
I can hear you.
What number?
It's working.
There it is.
2,000 markers. They all belong to the state. Say a U.S. Or National Park Service has a military park. They have a lot of markers outside of that territory. You don't cross over, and we don't take possession of keeping those up, do we?
Well, unless they are a state marker that is on national park grounds. So if you lose like Kennesaw, the battlefield there are several Georgia historical markers that are on that property, and we are responsible for taking care of
You are
those.
responsible?
Yes.
Will all Georgia markers have this Georgia emblem on them?
The state markers, the old state markers that were put up between 1953 and 1998, yes, they have the state seal, and the ones that Georgia Historical Society has been putting up, and as I said, on top of those 2,000, we've done about 250 new ones, and those have our seal on them.
Thank you.
And that was something that, yes, sir, that was something the state asked us to do. When we took the program, when we were given the program, we worked very closely with Senator George Hooks, who was very, very interested in this project. And one of the things that he asked us to do was to set up for the first time a review committee. There had never been a review committee of historians to decide what markers should be put up. So applications were coming in, or people were asking for markers, and they were just being put up. And as a consequence, we ended up, and I know George has talked about this before, 3 markers on the same topic. There are 2 markers out there that both claim to have the first pecan or pecan trees. They have different theories about how they got there. So having this review process of historians has prevented that kind of duplication.
Now, on 2 occasions you mentioned 2,000 markers. You don't just keep it at 2,000, do you?
No, so the state markers there's 2,000 of those, and they stopped those in 1998. So they're sort of set. That's a finite amount.
Okay.
Unless for some reason they disappear, some of them go away. We don't know where they are, but we try to get them back in the ground and replace them. But the ones that we're doing, that is continuing to grow. So the 250 approximately that Georgia Historical Society has put up since 1998, those are continuing to be added to all the time. Mm-hmm. And we're continuing to tell a much wider and broader story that brings in all of Georgia history and all the people of Georgia history.
Any other questions?
So there's really now 2,250 markers. If you think about it that way, there's 2,000 state markers and the 250 that the Georgia Historical Society has put up.
Now, do people report the markers that they see that are
yes
just when you're riding around, if you see one that needs needs to.
So one of the things we've done on our website is there's a page on there for reporting a historical marker. And you can fill the form out, you can call us, you can send it in by email, however you want to do it. Submit it through the website. There's a number where you can call. And that, we do rely on, and our community partners out there all over the state to kind of keep an eye on these for us because, clearly we can't be, everywhere all at the same time. And occasionally, as I said, I run into them. Everywhere I go, even on my personal vacations, if I'm in the state, I'll take pictures. I send those back. A lot of them need to be repaired, and I'll say, we need to get this one on the list. I'm kind of a marker nerd myself, so.
I know several months ago, I was going through Baker County in southwest Georgia, and I saw one from DeSoto Trail that was in very bad shape. I should have stopped and taken a picture.
If you would please, that would be terrific.
Okay,
Because
a lot of people don't know DeSoto came through this section of Georgia.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, we're always taking pictures of them and rely on people.
Right.
I was in Pennsylvania once and saw a bumper sticker that they have in their state, and it says, "Caution, I break for historical markers." So there are a lot of people out there who read them.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the job you're doing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we've got two other questions. I'm sorry. Representative LaHood.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I was just curious, and you may have already said this, but how many employees are in the Georgia Historical Society?
Georgia Historical Society, oh my gosh, we have, we're down right now like everybody else. I think right now we've got 16 people maybe. But keep in mind that maybe one person is really working on this full time. We have a marker manager that helps oversee the program. The rest of our people are divided up between the education team, which is probably the largest that we have. And then we're in the process right now of rebuilding back our we run a research center that has the oldest collection of Georgia history materials in the world, and that is located in Savannah, and that's a team of archivists and librarians. And then, of course, we have our administrative team. And so right now we are down because of the research center being closed. So we'll be adding back, but the people we're adding back are people who are archivists and librarians.
Thank you.
So it's a relatively small team. I mean, we've got, in a good time, we have maybe a $3 million budget.
Representative Mathis.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Chairman. You kind of answered my question. I was going to try to find out if we saw one that was damaged. You say we can go to the website and report that?
Yep. Or you can give us a call. You can just call the office and report it. But there is a page on there where where you can actually fill out a form. But we will know where it is, and that as much as we can know about not just the name of it, but where it is and the location, where you saw it, and what you see in terms of the damage. A priority obviously can be something that maybe is in the road that's fallen down. If it's got this lichen mess all over it, that's also a priority, but not quite as much as a safety hazard might be. But yes, you can go to the website, you can call us on the phone and let us know. There's also application form is on there. If people want to get a new historical marker, they can fill the application form out then and send that to us, and then that will go before the review committee.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything that you do. We really appreciate your support, and thank you for your service to this state. It's really,
thank
really
you.
Important, so thank you.
And I do think that the money was left in the budget that we just passed this morning. I'm not sure. We passed a budget out this morning. We agreed with the Senate.
Thank you.
And I think it's still the same.
Unless the Senate.
Huh?
If the Senate agreed, yes.
If the Senate agreed. I think, don't, just check, okay?
Thank you. Well, you just made my day. Thank you.
I think that's right. Now, I hate to write on your parade right now.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I looked at it, but I don't really remember. I think it was stayed in. All right, thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be able to see you without your. I know we have to wear these, but it's nice to be able to see people's faces.
Well, good. Thank you so much for coming. Georgia Forestry Commission. And
No, GCA.
no, oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Nunn. I didn't even got my glasses on. Okay, Commissioner Gunn. What'd you say?
Your glasses are right there.
Well, I'm so sorry you had to hurry down, but we're just having a little technical issues.
I'm glad it worked. I apologize. I had a meeting that ended at 1:30, and I thought we'd take advantage of the technology, but this works great, and thanks for the flexibility. Madam Chair, I'm joined today by John Ellis. I know you all know our Chief Operating Officer, and I appreciate your continued support for the Department of Community Affairs and the work that we do. I know you've had a long day, so I'm going to skip all of the kind of overview and happy to spend time one-on-one. And I'm going to jump right into the FY22 budget. I would be remiss in not just touching on one point from our FY21 budget. Probably the most significant item in terms of a move was the move of historic preservation from the Department of Natural Resources to DCA. And I'm not going to tell you that was easy, but it was, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But David Crass and his team of professionals have been fantastic to work with. I'm extremely proud of the great team we have at DCA, and really, I'm grateful for the fact that that's gone off without really a hitch. Historic preservation hasn't missed a beat, and I'm proud that we've been able to address a backlog on the tax credit side. There's been a lot of real good collaboration with our downtown development division, as well as our regional reps. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on that front. Our FY22 budget can be found on page 18 of your overall tracking document, or it starts at section 16 of that document. And really, we don't have a whole lot of adds or subtractions. I'll really quickly highlight 16.4.1, which is an enterprise adjustment, for which I'm sure there are no questions. And I'm going to skip over the attached agencies of the ATL Authority and GFA and Greta. I know you've already heard from Kevin on the GFA front. So I'll direct you to section 16.15, and we have two requests under the One Georgia Authority. I know this committee is aware that One Georgia as an authority was created to address the needs of rural Georgia. This was predicated on a notion that, despite the overall prosperity of the state, the economic prosperity of rural Georgia has lagged that of our urban areas. And so, to this end, One Georgia was created to advance the public interest of promoting the welfare, health, safety, and economic security of rural Georgia. So currently, the One Georgia program encompasses 3 programs that have been, or in one case, promised to be very effective rural development tools. And let me just share a little bit about each one. So the EDGE program is intended to serve as deal closing funds to assist in the recruitment and expansion of competitive projects in rural Georgia. That is, projects where we are competing with another state for investment and job creation. So examples of those projects would include Guidoni, a Brazilian company that makes ornamental stones and has moved into the old Husqvarna plant in Telfair County. Will create 455 jobs, which is huge in that region of the state. Higher Appliance, which does business in Georgia or in the U.S. as GE Appliances, has significantly expanded their operations in North Georgia with investments in Walker, Murray, and Jackson County, creating another 300 jobs in that part of our state. And Equity Group LLC, which decided to expand their facility in Camilla. This was a $35 million expansion that creates another 100 jobs in and around Mitchell County. So the EDGE program is intended to assist with those competitive projects. The second program, the One Georgia Equity Program, is used to provide local economic developers with capacity building resources to help attract and grow industry in their local community. So available industrial capacity, land, and infrastructure is vital to local and regional economic growth. So this program provides up to $500,000 of co-investment to ensure that local economic developers have access to the available resources necessary for them to grow. And Madam Chair, there are so many examples of the success of this program I know you are aware of, and all of us. I'll highlight a couple just as examples. You know, last year in Toombs County, One Georgia assisted the city of Lyons with extending sewer service to 2 onion processing plants where they had heretofore relied on some dedicated space for their septic capacity. By tapping into sewer capacity, they were able to expand their operations and move to full-time year-round service, creating new jobs in that community. Around the corner in Jessup, One Georgia provided a $500,000 co-investment to assist with the development of a new industrial park. It was adjacent to their existing industrial park, which simply had no additional capacity. It was full, and the community invested $2 million in the land acquisition. One Georgia came alongside them to assist with some site improvements and extending the utilities into an expanded industrial park to allow for them to continue to grow. And as much as we have talked about the importance of regional cooperation, I was particularly pleased with a $500,000 investment in Pierce County. The 4-county Southeast Georgia Regional Development Authority operates, they actually operate a couple of industrial parks in their region, but they operate in an industrial park in Pierce County that is adjacent to Tier 1 rail, which is a real competitive differentiator. However, the lack of a direct rail link had been problematic for numerous companies that have looked at that park. So One Georgia is assisting the JDA with putting in a switch and a rail spur, which is expected to pay significant dividends throughout that region. So those are some examples of the equity program. Now I'm going to return to the final existing program, broadband, momentarily, but let me direct you to our first request, which is at 16.15.1. The Rural Innovation Fund is a new One Georgia program. So there are 3 existing. This is a new One Georgia program proposed by the governor, as you heard in his State of the State address. So during this administration, the Department of Economic Development has announced more than 680 new projects, many of them, the vast majority, outside of Metro Atlanta. 80% of the private investment and almost 60% of the jobs have been located in more rural parts of our state. Now, in the throes of this global pandemic, previously unforeseen opportunity has become real for parts of rural Georgia. And recognizing this opportunity and the need for a more flexible resource, we're requesting $39.5 million to launch this new program. The purpose of these funds would be to support innovative opportunities defined at the local level. So communities would be expected to apply for these funds in conjunction with an enterprising business partner or a jobs creator and an actionable and sustainable business plan for rural economic growth. Now, you may be asking yourself, okay, Christopher, so how does this differ from the established programs that we've just discussed? So let me be clear. Unlike EDGE, these funds would not require interstate competition. Perhaps your community has a local entrepreneur armed not only with an innovative idea, but also a passion for improving her community. Now, in the case of equity, which is quite effective at supporting future industrial development, it's really simply a matter of flexibility and capacity. We envision these rural innovation funds to be more flexible and able to meet a variety of near-term local needs, again, as defined by the community. And let me offer an example, which of course is hypothetical because this is a new program, but imagine, if you will, a group of entrepreneurs in your community who have identified a new business venture to make Georgia-made product. Yeah, maybe that's personal protective equipment to address a substantial new market. Perhaps that's even an existing technology or an innovative new technology necessary that could be repatriated or created in Georgia because of cybersecurity concerns. Now, this isn't a pie-in-the-sky or back-of-the-napkin idea, but a legitimate business plan that's backed by local economic development leaders. And while the owners may not yet have established an operating line of credit, they've probably secured a commitment from your local bank and are considered a bankable business. Now, no one in this group is interested in looking outside of your community at alternative site locations, but there is some need for upfront capital to make improvements in the community. Perhaps that involves renovating an existing industrial facility, or maybe even rehabbing a historic downtown building for business purposes. That might include purchasing equipment to train students at the College and Career Academy, or even partnering with TCSG to develop workforce skills and retraining programs. I think you may get the point. The needs will best be determined at the local level and will be targeted to the specific circumstance. But these near-term needs exceed the purpose and capacity of the existing equity program. Now, I realize I've used the terms targeted and flexible a lot, but let me acknowledge that we take seriously our responsibility as stewards of public funds. While we would expect communities and innovation partners to bring ideas to the table, the One Georgia team and our regional representatives, both DCA and the Department of Economic Development, would be available to engage and help craft these ideas into truly fundable opportunities. There's certainly limitations on what we can do with public funds. To evaluate the feasibility and the viability of proposed investments, we'll leverage the expertise of the Centers of Innovation. And of course, all funding actions would be made by the One Georgia Authority, which includes the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor, as well as the Legislative Oversight Committee. I'm sure there are questions, but I'm going to move on just very briefly to 16.15.2. I told you I'd come back to the third of the existing programs, and you'll find here a recommendation for an additional $10 million in broadband funding. As we discussed in our amended hearing, this request is intended to fund an existing program that was launched 2 years ago following the passage of Senate Bill 402. Pursuant to that legislation, the Georgia Broadband Program has made great strides, including the publication of the Georgia Broadband Availability Map. I'm proud of the work that Dina Perry and her team have done on the broadband front, but until the amended budget, which again, I'm grateful for your support, there had heretofore been no funding for this particular program. This line item simply provides an additional $10 million for the same purpose. These funds will be used to provide grants to communities working in partnership with private providers, qualified providers, to connect some of Georgia's 507,000 unserved locations. With that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to take questions, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. My question is, I know we're all real proud of the maps that we have and what a great job y'all have done. How much have we spent on those maps?
How much have we spent on the maps? Let's see. I've got that here somewhere. So to date, Madam Chair, we have invested a total of $4.3 million to develop those broadband availability maps. I'll remind you, those are first of their kind in the nation. So we started a couple of years ago with a pilot. Instead of launching in with a methodology, we focused on 3 counties, and we really perfected the process, and we realized that there were some things that we were asking of providers that were relatively onerous. There were some things that we were trying to do on our end that perhaps could be done a little bit differently. And so after 18 months, following the pilot, it took us about 18 months to get those launched. and 4.3 million is the amount we've spent.
Well, I think that they've really proved helpful to a lot of people. How much is it going to cost to keep those maps up, though? We don't want to spend that money and then not keep it up.
Absolutely, and that is clearly not our intent. The simple answer to your question is our estimate is between 1 and 1.1 million a year, and it is absolutely our intent to keep those maps up. The FCC has really taken note of Georgia's leadership in this regard, and there is movement afoot at the federal level to replicate on a nationwide basis what we are doing at the state. So we absolutely want to keep the momentum, until the FCC picks up that effort.
So would the maintenance of the maps, would they come out of the 10 million or?
I know that we've identified the funding, and I'll have to, I may have to go to our team. I lost half of our team, but I brought John with me. Do you know the answer to that, or I'll circle back with you, but we've identified the funding for that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the funding was in to keep up the maps.
Thank you.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, it's always good to see you, and thank you for the job that you do. How soon do you think the grants will be available for the broadband monies?
That is probably the 9th time I've been asked that question this hour, but I appreciate the question. We are moving very diligently, and it was really important that I laid out that this is an existing program that was developed, thanks to the foresight of this body and the hard work of Dina Perry and her team. So we are moving diligently in that regard. I would hope that you will see a NOFA, which is a Notice of Funding Availability. I love government acronyms. We've got an acronym for everything. But that you will see that in the very coming months. We're working diligently to dot the I's and cross the T's, and of course the passage of the budget is important before we move there. But we'll move quickly in that regard, and I promise I'll let you be the first to know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, and thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Safe travels.
Got to remember where I put my mask.
Forestry. What's his name? Yes, please. Director Lattimore, welcome. I think this is the first time you've come before us, and we sure are glad to have you with us today.
It is, Madam Chairman, and it's a pleasure to be with the committee today. And I was excited to be able to be here today in person. So thank you for making these arrangements and allowing us to be here. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to working with you in the coming years.
Absolutely. I got a couple young girls that are counting on their dad being here for a few years, so I appreciate that. So thank you, Madam Chair, and first of all, before I get started, just let me say on behalf of all of our employees at the Forestry Commission, the news that was shared yesterday by this body granting state employees that were working on the front lines for COVID response and giving them a bonus is greatly appreciated. Thank you all for your support on that effort, and I speak on behalf of our employees. I know it will be meaningful for them, and I know that they will be appreciative of that effort, so thank you for doing that. I think that's worthy of you guys being recognized for that, so thanks so much. I was with you last, I guess a couple weeks ago, and I was 2 weeks on the job. This week, I'm a month on the job, so as the director of the Georgia Forestry Commission, and as I said in that meeting, I'm a forester by trade. This is quite the pinnacle of my career to be able to have the opportunity to lead this great organization, the Georgia Forestry Commission. So something that comes, I think, to me, it comes with a lot of responsibility. And my commitment to this committee and my commitment to the governor's office is that I will work as hard as I can to lead this agency and to make sure that we lead it in a way that's responsible and a way that our state should be proud of it to have. Representing it. So let me just share with you just a bit of information. This year, 2021, is the Forestry Commission centennial. year. So we'll be celebrating that throughout the year, out in the field, out in the district at our county offices, and we'll be extending invitations out to some of our key leaders where we're doing that. And we'll have some resolutions forthcoming by this body a little bit later in the year during the Forestry Day at the Capitol, which is in late February. So just wanted you guys to be aware of that, that the Commission has been around 100 years fulfilling its mission to protect and conserve the great natural resource that our state has. Our budget for fiscal year 2022 is pretty straightforward. In my opinion, there's not a whole lot of real excitement in that. The budget is flat. I will let you know that on section 26.1, you'll notice that we are requesting to move a position from forest management over to administration. That was moved into forest management a couple years back according to the historical knowledge of the organization, and it's just proven to be a better fit in administration. So we're asking that that be considered as one slight change.
Well, I promise you that's no problem.
Gotcha.
Wish all of them were that easy.
And you know, it just really just kind of one thing I would like to make the committee aware of. You know, our ability to serve our clientele and serve the citizens of Georgia has been somewhat impacted by COVID, but we've weathered the storm and we're back out servicing landowners and providing fire breaks and providing prescribed burn assistance and providing that one-on-one invaluable first point of contact for forest landowners seeking advice on how to manage their forest. With that, we've also really focused on managing our costs and our expenses, which is nothing new. This committee has heard that from the Forestry Commission for years and for decades. I would like to make you aware we've seen some increase in some of our expenses. For example, our work comp insurance, we've got an increased premium of about $180,000 this year. And we're managing through that and we're working through that, but I just think it's important to reflect and to let our committee members be aware that expenses aren't flat. So just sharing that with you for information. Bond update, fiscal year 22, we've got $690,000 allocated for equipment. That's 2 dozers and 2 tractors, and that really is just regular maintenance and regular routine maintenance on making sure our fleet of tractors and equipment is up to par where we can respond to continue to keep Georgia's wildfire size as low as any other state in the nation. Our average fire size in Georgia for wildfires is about 5.5 acres. And that's something that we all ought to be proud of, and that's largely in part because of the resources that we have to do our job. Additionally, there's a $950,000 allocation in that bond agreement for a new construction project in Pierce County, a new office building down there that needs to be repaired. So just wanted to give you an update on that bond agreement. You know, we provided a slide packet to you, and we're not going to walk through all those slide decks. It's really historical context and really just information for you to have at your hands for reference material. But I do want to share with you just some really 3 highlights out of that packet, and that's how GFC addressed COVID this past year. 147 of our employees manned the PPE warehouse in Kennesaw and distributed PPE gear to hospitals and to folks in need all across our state during the early days of COVID. And also our Albany office was used as a testing site. We were glad to do that, and as you know, the Forestry Commission and our employees stand ready to assist any way we can to prevent the spread of this virus and to limit and to get folks vaccinated and to get our business back to as normal as we can get it. One of the slides in there just shows you our historical context. I think it's the very last slide, and you'll see that our budget right now is similar to what it was back in '08. So just for historical purposes, I want to share that with you. We are proud to say that because of the support we've had in the last couple of years through some bond work and through some special sessions associated with Hurricane Michael, as I shared in the amended budget report, our fleet and our ability to respond to wildfires is as good a shape as it's been in some time now. And so thank you for that support, and thank you for putting us in a position to where we can be ready to respond to wildfires and to prevent wildfire spread in our state. You know, what I've learned in my first month, Madam Chair, is that our agency's filled with folks that are focused on integrity, and they're focused on equality, and they're focused on using facts for decisions. That's no surprise to me. I'm a forester by trade. We got a lot of foresters that work for us, and that's just what we do. That's just, we use facts and we use science to make decisions. And I want to reassure to you, that's going to be the approach we take going forward, is we're going to use facts to make good decisions, to drive the way our organization stewards the resources that you guys give us to be stewards of. And then I'll end with, we distributed a video. We were going to try to show it, but we were warned not to on Zoom and just for technology reasons. But I hope it's about 2 minutes. And if you haven't watched it, I hope you'll watch it. And we're going to do our very best to get it to every member underneath this gold dome to watch that video, because it is really, for me, it is what a representative democracy is about. And those landowners that are on that video are just, you can see the relief and the thankfulness and the hope that this body gave them through the resources that you gave to the Forestry Commission to go down and clean up their forest land and to keep their forest land productive. And it has a great message of hope and a great message of thankfulness, and I would encourage, if you haven't seen it, to watch it. And my hope and my hope and my vision for this Forestry Commission is that we can take that same approach as we go forward and realize that we've got a great resource to underneath our stewardship and to do our part to support that great natural resource that our state has. So, Madam Chairwoman, I'll
we'll
stop
be
there.
glad to work with you to try to get that distributed throughout the Capitol. And hopefully, I'd like to watch it. And we do have videos sometime that come on and when we in session in the House, and they do play them up on a big screen. And maybe we can do that Forestry Day or something.
I think it would be, that's an excellent idea.
I have one question. Well, Representative Tarbin has a question first.
Thank you, Lady Chair. Did you say workers' comp?
I did.
$180,000 increase?
Yes.
Okay, does the state handle everybody's workers' comp?
So Representative Tarver, I failed to mention that I've got my Director of Administration, our Director of Administration,
Okay.
Michelle Gray. She's probably better suited to answer that question.
Yeah.
Is it yes or no? Yes.
Yes, it's handled through the state. Okay, I can't, I'm deaf and I can't hear. So.
Yes, it's handled through DOAS.
Was this this is interesting, if yours was 180, was that due to experience mod within the Forestry Service, or was it statewide, or do you know that? I mean, if that's just for 180,000, I know it's expensive. And how many employees are you talking about?
We are at 551.
Well, you know, if that's statewide, that's we can check elsewhere, I guess. I never had thought about the workers' comp side, and if it's all through one carrier as our health insurance is, but you pay that, or it's taken from you into the state. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Several years ago, we instigated a program where you got things from the federal surplus department. Is that program still going? At one time, we'd gotten over $160 million. I mean, no, $67 million, not $167 million, for volunteer fire departments through the state. Are we still operating that program?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. We are still operating that program, and we appreciate you getting us higher on the priority list to screen that equipment a couple years back. That was my understanding of what I've learned this first month is that was a major boost to our ability to screen really high quality equipment for these fire departments and for the agencies around the state.
And I think it's interesting, if any of the members haven't seen it, that a couple of years ago there was a book out, and it showed what different towns and different counties had gotten since we implemented that program.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody's seen the book or not. It's very interesting what they've gotten. And I'm glad to know it's still going on.
Yes, ma'am. And I don't know if you recall, I know you've had a lot on come through your mind, but or come through your table here. But the very first document I signed by coincidence with my signature was our ability to continue that program. So
well, thank you, and I'm sure all the local volunteer fire departments and cities appreciate it.
Glad to
counties. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you, and thank you so much. Safe travel back to Athens, and I know it's going to be rough on that highway, but thanks for coming.
We appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and thank you for the work you guys do.
And we will be back in touch, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now,
Georgia Agricultural Expedition Authority.
they're on Zoom, so I'm gonna call.
Oh, they're on Zoom. We might have a problem, but we'll try again.
No, I'm just gonna call him.
You're just going to call them and tell them we can't Zoom?
No, he's gonna talk over the phone.
All right, we're going to call them, and they're going to talk over the phone, okay?
Hello, Morgan.
Hello.
Good morning. Stephen, Penny Houston, we're trying to put a phone up here. This is sort of,
Yes, Madam Chair, we've been dealing with this just like you have, so this is nothing new to us, and we understand completely. And just thank you and the committee and Morgan for putting this together, and we're just glad to have the chance to talk with you.
well, we've got some members here, and the members on Zoom, we just had to discontinue our part on Zoom. So if you want to go on and say a few words, we know y'all are having lots of trouble down there, and if you just sort of brief us on it.
Yes, ma'am. I've got with me Steve Rogers, who's our CFO, and I'm going to turn it over to him in just a moment. But I'd like to just kind of hit the highlights of where we're at right now. We got word this morning that the House and the Senate, in the amended budget, we're looking at about $2.25 million that in assistance to us. And I got to tell you, we are some of the most grateful people that you would ever want to meet right now. As that was very good news, and I know it's up to the governor, and we're patiently awaiting. So as we look forward to fiscal year 22, we are going to be asking for a little bit more. Our original ask was $750,000, and I think that we can stay with that. If the amended, if we can get the 2.25 million and the additional 750,000 above our normal appropriation that we usually get every year, I believe that we will be in good financial shape as long as we can get events to quit canceling on us, and we can have the 2021 Georgia National Fair. I think that we'll be put back whole. So.
Do y'all have business interruption insurance?
We do, and we are working through that. We've been since the onset of, and I'll turn that over to Steve Rogers. A good point for him if you can touch on that, Steve.
Yes, I've been in probably 1st of April. The first thing I did was reach out to risk management and see if our business interruption insurance would cover. I know they've been through a very hard time kind of negotiating final settlement. My understanding from them was that they would submit their negotiated settlement with the underwriters this past Monday. I've been reaching out to OPB to see how that's going to be allocated. I think there were 40 to 46 agencies that carried this coverage. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what portion of that we may be fortunate enough to receive.
Well, just tell me, don't exactly understand how that, you didn't know how much you were going to have your liability was for that, or how do you do it? Explain to me.
Well, I think risk management must write it across all the agencies that purchase the coverage.
Okay.
And so whatever the settlement is I guess one lump sum that my understanding is OPB will allocate it to the insured agencies.
Well, when you purchased the coverage, did you purchase like $2 million of, I'm just using an example, business interruption, or how do you?
I believe that. Yeah, I believe it's a group policy of all those that buy into it from the state, and it's for a lump sum. I believe it was 45. No, it was 17 or 16 million dollars.
That's what the negotiated settlement is.
Right, and that is split between, we don't know how many agencies participate in that. So.
Well, does that happen? I mean, do you have that each year, or was that just for fiscal year 2020?
We buy into it. We buy into it every year.
We pay for it every month. So I have been told that right now the numbers they're working with relate to 2020 through December 31. The last schedule I submitted to risk management was to be cut off at December 31.
December 31. So you'll have to do another one this year too.
Let's certainly hope so, yeah, because as Stephen pointed out, we've had about $200,000 worth of calendar 2021 business canceled in the last 4 weeks.
Well, I know it's not only hard for you, it's hard for the economy up in Perry too, because I know how much they depend on the fair and everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Anything else other than that?
No, ma'am. Like Stephen has said, we would ask for the additional $750 over our normal allotment with an eye towards building our staff back up. I mean, we've been operating at about 70% of normal staffing, and it's beginning to take its toll on the folks that are still here. So we're hopeful that if we get some of this money in, we'll be able to replenish some of our departments and spread the burden a little bit more than we've been able to do in the last 9 months.
Do I have any questions? Have y'all already signed the contract for the fair next year? I mean, this coming fall, do you sort of think you'll be able to have it?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We've booked all of the entertainment. A lot of it rolled over from what was supposed to be coming in 2020. We're full head, going ahead with all plans to have it. As a matter of fact, in a few days, we'll be hosting our rodeo. We're going to have it, as well as the junior livestock show. So
great. Well, that sounds good. That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much, and hopefully next year, everybody will be back in the won't have masks, and we can tell when y'all are smiling and happy.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any questions? All right. Thanks so much. The next we have is Savannah Convention Center.
They're outside.
Okay. Okay, stand up. Stretch your legs. Got to get that walking in.
And then you guys can present right here. Do you have handouts? I do. Okay, I'll put them.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Do you mind closing the door? Oh, you've got a couple of stragglers. Oh, well, good.
Here they are now.
How's your day going?
Well, it's been busy.
Yeah.
We got the budget out, that was a good thing, this morning.
That one's different. It's maybe that's not.
Ready to go?
Thank you. Is this the first time we've got some new members here, Joe? This is Joe Marinella, and I think we've got two or three new members. I don't know if you've met Representative Mathis and Representative LaHood. I think the rest of us were on there.
Good deal. Well,
So,
good afternoon. My name is Joe Marinelli. I'm the president of Visit Savannah. We are the Tourism and Convention Bureau for the city of Savannah, Chatham County, and Tybee Island area. And today I'm representing our efforts related to the expansion of the Savannah Convention Center. You have your packet in front of you, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. I know you've had a long day. Chair Lady Houston, I know you're managing all of this for the group, so thank you for your efforts, and I'll walk you through this presentation as efficiently as I can, but we're certainly prepared to answer any of your questions. So I'm going to flip the page to the second page there, and the Savannah Convention Center, as you can see, is state-owned. The building's state-owned, the property is state-owned. It was built by Chatham County, and of course resides inside the city limits. So it's really a collaborative effort and has been for the last 20 years between the city, the county, and the state. The convention center began as a joint effort between Savannah and Chatham County back in 1993, finally opened in 2000. And as all of you know, because I'm sure you've all been to different conferences over the years, has really become one of the most popular convention facilities in the Southeast, and certainly has grown as Savannah has grown as a tourism destination. The next page is a whole bunch of numbers to look at, but there's some important ones to look at. This table really demonstrates the financial commitment that our local community has made from 1993 through 2017. And as you can see in that first subtotal line, the local financial commitment in terms of SPLOST dollars and others has been about 83% of the funding necessary to operate this building. And then if you drop it down and look at the other components, which includes the water docks in the area, the ferry system that we have to operate to move convention attendees back and forth to the two sides of the river, you see the total local commitment over that number of years as being almost 75% of the total number. That's significant in our eyes, but also why we come to you now as the state to help us with the necessary dollars to expand the building so we can begin to prepare for the next 20 years. Flipping the page to current facilities, you see a picture on the left of a convention that was in last summer, and it was really the first big convention that we were able to host since the start of the pandemic. It was the Georgia Chiefs of Police. They had over 450 attendees. As you can see in this picture, it's one of many. They were able to meet safely in the facility for about 4 days, and safely in terms of the new protocols related to COVID. So that was back in July. Of course, you all know, are familiar with the Georgia Municipal Association big convention typically happens in June. This year that event will move to early August. And then our friends at the Association of County Commissioners, the ACCG group, which typically would host their convention in April, has moved their event to November.
The one that we miss the most is our friends at the Georgia Fruit and Vegetable Association. That convention normally kicks off our year in January in a big way. We weren't able to host them this year, but we look forward to welcoming them back next January. Flipping to the next page, a record of success, you see that we typically host about 150 to 160 events in that facility each year. That generates a tremendous amount of hotel room sales in our community, which is so important. Of course, Savannah is a very popular leisure destination on Friday and Saturday and Sundays, but we really count on convention business to really carry the day for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. You know, right now about 25,000 local Savannians are employed in the hospitality and tourism industry, and we really count on convention business to keep those folks working throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout the year. You can see a couple of symbols on this slide. The first one is the LEED Gold certification. You're all familiar with that as it relates to environmental standards that the convention center it has already met. In fact, our convention center was the first one in the state of Georgia to obtain the gold certification. And more recently, the GBAC certification, which suggests that the convention center has met the necessary protocols and preventions to achieve the GBAC certification, which is very, very important for us to attract future conventions. Flipping to the next page, you see that there are a number of logos there that suggest the collaboration of all of the local communities that are involved in collecting lodging taxes that help funnel and fuel the convention center. Of course, you see Savannah and Chatham County, but our friends at Port Wentworth, Pooler, Tybee Island, and Garden City all collect hotel motel taxes that go towards supporting and paying for the convention center as well. I'll take a quick second and just tell you a brief story about Tybee Island. You know, when you look back at 2020, Tybee Island came within 5 percentage points of having a record-breaking year. And when you consider that we lost half of March of last year, all of April, and most of May to come within 5 percentage points of a record-breaking year is really quite a pat on the back for Tybee Island, and we're really proud of the success that they've had. Flipping to the next page, you see really the first picture of what the new convention center expansion would look like. This is on the north side of the building, and you can see the river and the city skyline behind it. Currently, our facility is the 153rd largest facility in the country. And so that allows us to compete with certain other cities for convention business. But with the planned expansion and the doubling of the size of the exhibit hall, that number 153 ranking would move us up to about the 72nd largest convention center in the country. Obviously, you see the big five located are listed just above that. We're not in the business to compete with Las Vegas and Orlando and Chicago yet, but when you flip the page to the next, you'll see the listing of a number of other cities in the southeast region and the size convention centers that they have. And right now, you know, we aren't able to compete with places like Tampa and Fort Lauderdale and Birmingham and so forth. So you can see why, from a competitive standpoint, this expansion is necessary, not only to keep people working, but to continue to drive convention business and visitor spending dollars, not only in Savannah and Chatham County and the surrounding region, but throughout Georgia. Little sidebar note, Tampa and Fort Lauderdale are both currently also exploring plans to expand their facilities as well. So you can see many municipalities around the country are preparing to grow for the post-pandemic era. Flipping the page, you see the expansion project and sort of an overview of what our plans are with the expansion. As I mentioned a minute ago, we'll double the size of the exhibit hall. We currently have 100,000 square feet. That would double in size to 200,000. We would add a new ballroom, which would be significant for a lot of the big groups that use our convention center. Gulfstream Aerospace is a great example of one of the largest events that we do in our ballroom, and they really are looking forward to having larger space. We'll add a parking garage. Of course, you know, hosting Gulfstream conventions also means having the need for a large hangar door, and that will be included in the expansion as well, to be able to accommodate bringing small aircraft to display inside of the exhibit hall. We also do a number of other aviation conventions. One is the National Agriculture Aviation Association. Locally, we refer to them as the crop dusters. They come to Savannah every third year in December, and they use that large hangar door to display aircraft as well. You know, overall, this building has helped to generate almost $1.5 billion in visitor spending in our community. Clearly, that's through retail spending, tours and attraction, and of course, dining in our community. And as I mentioned earlier, about over 24,000 of our local friends and neighbors are employed in the local hospitality community. The next page shows you a little bit of an outdated list. Right there, you have about 50 different groups that have indicated that they are interested in booking conventions in Savannah, but only when we have a larger facility. And I say it's outdated because this list was printed back in November. Since then, we've added about 9 more groups to this list that are looking for, you know, with the popularity and the rise of, the rise of popularity of Savannah as a visitor destination, more and more groups want to bring their conventions here. International conventions, national conventions, regional conventions. Some are national associations, some are big corporate events. And the list continues to grow of groups that really want to bring their business to Georgia and specifically Savannah, but at the moment we cannot accommodate them because we don't have a large enough facility. You know, I purposely have not used the word shovel-ready in this presentation at all because we're way past that. This project is already underway. A number of technical parts of the project as it relates to air conditioning units and electrical and plumbing and so forth. Some of that work has already begun. So this is a project that is well underway and needs your support as it relates to the funding to keep that project going so we can open it on time and on budget. I've mentioned the jobs. You know, this slide also shares with you that about 600 construction jobs would be created as a result of this project. The next 2 slides have a lot of very small information, but also show you the timeline for completing the project, which right now we're projecting to have the facility open by mid-2023, and we're already talking to future groups about conventions for later that year. You'll see a couple of pretty pictures on the next slide. These are samples of the ads that we are running in national convention and meeting planner, publications, websites, and so forth. But we're already promoting the idea that Savannah will have a much larger convention center starting in 2023. The response from national convention planners and event planners has been tremendous to date, and there continues to be a lot of interest. They're just anxious to make sure that we get that groundbreaking done and can in fact open on time by mid 2023, as I said. And then my final slide really kind of recaps where we are at the moment. Thus far, the state has already committed $93 million to the project. Your commitment and support for the additional $90 million this year will go a long way to keeping our construction schedule on time and on budget. It's so important right now because there is so much building happening around the state and around the country, that we've got to be able to lock in a guaranteed maximum price for this convention center expansion. The cost of goods, the cost of labor is going up rapidly, and we want to be able to take advantage of locking in that pricing as soon as possible. The good news is, at one point, we had projected the ultimate cost of this project to be closer to $275 million. The reality of it is, where we're at today, it's actually less than what we had originally projected. Right now, coming in somewhere between 270 and 271. But again, that's only if we have the ability to take advantage of locking in a guaranteed maximum price sooner than later. So that's my presentation to you. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk with you. I'm certainly happy to try to answer any questions that you have about the tourism industry in Savannah and Chatham County, the convention center expansion project, or anything else. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Representative Mathis. I'm sorry, Representative Hood.
Yep. Thanks for the presentation, and appreciate Lee Hughes coming to me ahead of the meeting to explain and give me a heads up on what you're wanting to do and what you're already doing in Savannah. A couple of questions. With the large convention space like this, do you have the ability to host multiple conventions if they're smaller and don't need that big of a space at once? And then the second question, what does your research say about the post-pandemic convention activity?
Yeah, those are both really great questions, and I appreciate that. The first one is, in looking at tomorrow's, what tomorrow's convention looks like, it clearly means that groups are going to do a combination or a blend of virtual and in-person conventions. I think if we've learned anything through the pandemic and COVID, the future means both. So that means that when we do an expansion like this, the project has to be state-of-the-art. It has to have the electronic capabilities to accommodate the Zoom capabilities, which is what we're calling them now. I don't know what we'll call them in the future. But what we know about our industry is that people want to be with people. People have to meet with vendors at expos and exhibit halls and so forth, and they miss that. That's the other side of what's come out of COVID is, sure, you can still do a convention of sorts electronically or via Zoom, but there isn't that people-to-people contact that we need. So our research tells us that the convention business will be bigger than ever in the future, but it also means that a facility like this has to have the technical capabilities to do that. Getting back to your first question, yeah, that's probably the biggest plus of this expansion, is it gives us, in our industry, we call it the ability to meet and feed large groups. So we can accommodate one group that maybe is moving out of the building while the next group is moving into the building, or also be able to house multiple conventions at one time. One of the things I didn't talk about in the presentation is we are also exploring an opportunity with an Atlanta-based developer to build a new convention hotel on the other side of the convention center. You're all familiar with the Westin sort of anchors one side of the building, then the convention center, and we're talking with an Atlanta-based developer about building a new hotel on the other side. So that would really give us exactly what we need to have one group in one part of the building, another group in the other part of the building, and then sort of the in and out flow. So that would be a huge benefit of this expanded space. I'm sorry? Privately funded.
Any other questions? Have you had I know you mentioned the Georgia produce and food, so have a lot of people just canceled, or are you having any conventions?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lady, we're having a tough time with conventions. You know, Savannah is a very popular leisure destination, and we are very, very fortunate these days that visitors continue to come on Thursday and Friday and Saturday nights. But frankly, we have no sizable conventions between now and that GMA convention that I mentioned earlier, which will come in early August. You know, we've talked with our friends at Georgia Fruit and Vegetable, Charles Hall. They are committed to coming back in January, and of course, we all want to see them come back. But our industry has been devastated since the COVID, especially on the convention side. So the first part of our year is really tough. I know the folks here at the World Congress Center are experiencing a similar fate. But on the positive side, a lot of groups have shifted into dates into September, October, November of this year, and the first quarter of next year. So, you know, with the expanded distribution of the vaccine and consumer confidence building, we expect to have a very, very busy fall of convention activity. But it's a little light, quite frankly, between now and August.
Well, I knew I had a friend, the reason I asked that, I had a friend that went over to Savannah, and they were talking about how many, how busy everything was down on the waterfront and everything, and I know down in Atlanta, around Centennial Park, there's nobody.
Yeah, you know, if especially as we're heading into late February and early March, of course, that's the busiest time of the year in Savannah, and also the most beautiful time, the azaleas, the magnolias, and so forth. So we're expecting a lot of leisure visitor traffic in the spring, but we are, in fact, you know, our convention center staff has really, really worked hard since July of last year. From July of last year through January of this year, our convention center has hustled to bring in 40 different groups. Now, it's not business that we would typically want to have. We'd rather have the big convention groups, but we've hosted because of the COVID protocols that we have in place. We've been able to host those kinds of groups. So we've been fortunate, but no big conventions until late summer.
Do y'all have business interruption insurance?
Yes. Yes.
Do you participate in the state risk or individual business interruptions?
Say again, please. Yes, it's hard to hear you, I'm sorry. So
you can come talk if you'd like.
If you don't mind, I'd rather you.
Chair Lady, Michael Owens, it's nice to see you again.
Just take your mask off if you don't mind. We can't hear you. I'll turn you up.
Well, it's a GD-ECD mask, so you know it's a good quality.
If you're afraid to take your mask off,
no, not at all. Yeah, it is my understanding the authority does participate in the state's business interruption program, and it is applied back with the state to get its portion of that back, and that final result has not been given out to the authority quite yet.
Okay, I didn't know if y'all participated in that or not.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make sure. Hopefully that will soon be coming out to you and things. So.
Yes, ma'am. I do want to say, with the Chair Lady's permission, I am the CEO of the Tourism Leadership Council, which represents hotels and restaurants and retail throughout, with members here in Atlanta and along the coast. How truly impressed we've been with the Savannah Convention Center stewardship throughout this entire process, not just during COVID, but the 20 years of operations. I would like for you to know that the authority has never come to you for a capital request. It has self-funded all of its capital requests, roofs, parking lots, whatever. It has never come back to you and said, we need money for operations. That has always been taken care of by the local dollar match that will continue to perpetuate, or in perpetuity, I think, for another 36 years is to 2052. That figure just last year was $4.3 million. In that local continuous. So that commitment from the local community to make this state asset a success continues through 2050 and well beyond. But I think it is terrific how the program has been run in that building, to where it has been self-sufficient, and now requesting the state's support to continue its expansion program. That It is not just a case of building it in the hopes of new business coming. As you see in your presentation, I believe, is there's a long list of folks that we're going to lose if we can't provide them the space we need. And what I mentioned to you a few weeks ago and when I had the opportunity to speak with you, unfortunately, it's not a case of we'll lose that business in Savannah, but it'll float up to the World Congress Center. That's not the case. Those business will leave our state, and the millions of dollars in spending will go to South Carolina or Florida or some other place. We want to keep that business in this state and in our coast. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think everybody appreciates the job y'all have done and the interest that the towns and surrounding towns have had to promote the convention center and tourism as a whole. Anything? No other questions? Well, thank y'all, and is anybody, any of the other delegation like to say anything? It'll be fine. Okay, thank you, and thank you for coming, and safe travels.
We look forward to having you back in Savannah soon. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good, and maybe next year y'all can have the big parade, and the river will be green.
Yeah.
and the money will be coming in green too. Everything will come up green. Thanks. I have a motion. Do we adjourn? A motion and a second. We adjourn. Thank you.